Today on Rodder's Garage, I'm going to be taking these 3 steel wheels that I spun out in the lathe the other night and building myself a mini metal roller for arching tubing, such as this piece of 1/2 by 1/2 by 14 gauge wall, specifically for doing the roof structure in the Yard Art Model A. Let's go look at the plans. Alright, so over here on the table on this piece of green construction paper, I have everything drawn out that I need. Basically, this is to scale over here. It'll be about 7 or 8 inches tall when it's done. This wheel will be stationary. This wheel will be stationary on the bottom. And my top wheel here, as you can see, has a shank on it. That is going to be where the handle gets welded on to actually crank it and drive the steel through. It's basically my drive wheel. So, on the face side of my plate, I have a notch in it that this will slide through. Handle will get welded on after. And on the top, I will have a bolt and a pair of ears coming down that will drive this into the tubing, and then I can crank it through and create a nice arch in this 1/2-inch tubing for my roof supports. Basically, it'll be like that. Drive this down a little, put a little bend in it to start cranking, and you'll get a nice even radius all the way through that hopefully I can match out to the side radiuses of the car and the front for the front and rear, and all the bows or all the supports on that steel framing that will be under the new steel roof. So over here on the side, I had all my parts drawn up, not to scale, very crudely, but just so I remembered what to do when I designed all this in the computer program. And guess what? It's already all done, put on this flash drive, and I'm actually loaded up on the plasma table. So let's run back there, hit go, and punch out all these pieces and see if I can't assemble a functioning mini metal roller. Let's go. So over here on the computer, you can see I have all my parts and pieces nested out, ready to go. Piece of 3/16 on the table. Let's hit the go button. Front, back, handle, drivers, top, bottom. Good. All right, guys, well, that's pretty much a loosely bolted together mock-up of the machine, and honestly, I think it's gonna work great. Not gonna lie, I cut this top weld here a second ago and opened this up a little bit more on the adjuster part on the top because it was a little bit too snug and wasn't very easy to move up and down, so I cut this, re-welded this after I opened it a little, and now the adjuster goes up and down, nice and clean, nice and smooth there. And that's pretty much it. I'm ready to test this thing out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of 1/2x2 flat bar and I'm going to weld it right on the bottom of this thing, dead centered, like this, offset to the back side like this. And this is what I'm going to use to clamp it in the vise. So this can stick off the end of the vise. I can operate the crank without smashing my knuckles on the bench or the vise itself. So basically after I put that on, we'll go give this thing a try and see if it actually works. All right, first test on the mini metal roller. I have myself a piece of 1/2x1/2 like I want to use on my Model A roof. Let's put this piece in, give it a crank down and see if this thing actually works. All right, I'm going to snug it up to start. Let's see, that's pretty snug, and I'll give it, I don't know, I'll give it a 1/2 turn. All right, 1/2 turn on the top. Let's see what happens. Might be too much. It's working. I'm gonna take it a 1/4 turn. Another 1/4 turn. Come back this way. Oh my God. Huh. So, what's my first impression of the mini metal roller? Well, it's about what I expected. It's gonna do the job that I want it for, just smaller tubing like this occasionally. It's not being used every day. A bearing on this input side would really help out, but also I didn't put any grease or oil in this thing yet either because I'm probably gonna throw some paint on it. The other thing is on the back side of it here, I just have some regular 3/8 nuts finger tight back here, and I do have some all metal lock nuts that I will run down, snug it to the tension that I want on it, and then cut the end of these bolts off that are protruding out the back. So because they're a little loose right now, the wheels are able to walk just a little bit, and I noticed that would bind up just a little bit too. So basically, well, I rolled this first piece. That was a 1/4 turn right here. And it was a little bit hard to turn at that point, but I backed it off to 1/8 of a turn and it put a nice low radius in here fairly easily, so that's good. Now this one over here, I worked it through 3 times, I believe, 1/8 of a turn at a time, and honestly this matches up perfectly with the header panel up here on the Yard Art Model A. It's gonna work great for doing this. It's gonna make a nice even bend all the way through. I'm happy with it. Maybe in the future I'll cut it back apart and throw a bearing on that input side, but I want to see how it is with a little bit of oil or grease in it first. So I'm going to take this thing apart real quick. My handle's also loose. That wasn't making anything easier for me either. I want to pin that in or tack it in or do something with it after it's painted. So let me take this thing all apart, throw some paint on it, put a little more oil in it, and then I'm actually going to cut the real pieces, or at least one real piece for the Model A, run it through here, and see how it is after it's all tightened up, snugged up, and greased. Well, here it is, the mini metal roller, all assembled in a nice brand new coat of orange paint that I already got really dirty from greasing the insides of those wheels. I used copper anti-seize on the bottom two wheels for lubricant inside of those, as well as the inside of the drive wheel. Now off camera, right before I painted it, I drilled that one little hole right there through that sleeve I made, and then I actually drilled into the shaft a little bit right there. You can see there's a deeper hole drilled into that collar sticking off this drive wheel. I used this spray grease up there. This is a penetrating grease that goes on as a liquid creeps in, and then after about, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute, it actually turns into a thicker grease. That stuff works pretty good for stuff specifically like this, and I'm going to tell you, it feels a lot nicer than it did when I was doing it dry earlier before paint. So I'm going to go ahead and take these two bars over here, which I already cut to a usable length for the roof of the Yard Art Model A, and I'm going to give those each 3/8 inch cranks, so 3/8 of a full crank from the time I hit tension, which is what I did on that test piece earlier. Because that matched up so well with that header panel, I figured if I can roll these through at 3/8 of a turn and they come out matching 100% to the car again, I'd say this was a pretty good success. And I think after we do that, I'm going to go ahead and take this piece that I aggressively did in the beginning, and I'm going to see if I can roll this thing into a circle. Well, let's start with these. Oh, that's a lot better than it was before. Way smoother. Well, that's it. The first piece of steel going into production off the new mini metal roller. I'm going to jump on and start making the roof for the Model A, but I guess to finish this video off, I'm going to put that short piece back in here and keep throwing rate at this and see if we can go completely around in a circle with this thing. Let's try it out. Snug it up, put a quarter in. Go the right way. Come on, baby. Another quarter. Quarter. All right, that's getting old. Quarter. Well, this is about it for the 1/2 inch square tube. It doesn't really want to go any more than this. This is, I believe, 16 gauge wall square tube, and it's starting to actually make it wider and kind of kink it on the ends here where I'm not rolling it all the way out. So it's pretty much about the max radius that this is going to bend like this. Now, one thing I could do to probably make it bend a little easier and a little more of a radius than what I achieved here is actually bringing the lower two wheels out further. I have kind of a tight space in there, so when I'm cranking down on my adjuster, the tubing is sitting off here and here, where if I spread those a little more, got a little more gap in the middle, I probably would have an easier time driving that down, and it would probably be a little easier to bend, maybe even achieve a little more than this. But for the specific purpose that I made this thing, which is putting a little bit of arch in the bows on the roof of the Model A, it works pretty good. For what I need it for, it's going to be great. Now, actually, what I want to do is I'm going to go find a piece of light flat bar and roll that through there real quick and see what that does. All right, here's a piece of 5/8 by about an 1/8 inch thick, maybe 14 gauge thick. Let's see how easy this goes. I'm sure it'll be super effective on this. If I roll it the right way. You know, I should probably cut my adjuster down a little bit here. It's not bad. It's not bad for what it is. It's great for the intended purpose I made it for. And it's just a handy little thing to have for, I'm sure, other things than making bows for the Model A roof. Even if it's just used for that, I'm happy with it. So that is pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. When I come back, I will be making the rest of the bows and arches for the roof and getting the sheet metal on the top of that Yard Art Model A. For now, this can go back up on the shelf and maybe let the paint dry a little bit more, because I I already screwed it up pretty good. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Till next time.